So today I've got Ian Tucker from Insight Timer. How are you, Ian?
Good morning, Steve. Doing well? Or good afternoon,
It's
good evening, wherever you are.
evening in Australia, morning for where you are.
It is. It's 10 o'clock, yeah.
I've noticed you're live streaming frequently on Insight Timer as well, which is pretty good. How did you come across Insight Timer? What's been your story?
Well, two or 3 years ago, so really just before the world changed with this COVID thing, I was doing a lot of talks, workshops around the UK and sometimes across Europe. And we all had to have a bit of a rethink and a plan B. So I'd still got the message, I'd still got the content, and I just happened to read in an article about this upcoming app called Insight Timer. I'd got some recorded material, put it on there, and was just really pleasantly amazed at the take-up of it. Really, I mean, this global audience overnight, and suddenly your material that you're used to delivering in a room with so many people can be anywhere in the world at any time. So it's a great platform, really good.
Yeah, because Headspace at one point was and you had Calm as well, were the biggest meditation apps. I remember Insight Timer back in 2018. It was about $5 a month. It was, and there was a few teachers. So I came across it very early, and I kind of knew they had a good thing going towards it. And look how far it's come. Live streaming now. Got courses. I pay a yearly subscription, which is nice as well.
Yeah, good plan. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting bolt on the live that you talk about, because it's growing. I mean, I think they're up to something like 10,500 teachers now and 15 million users. I mean, the mind boggles really with those sort of numbers. And the live aspect just brings a little bit of personal interaction back to it, in my view. Although I'm only looking at an iPhone, everybody else is behind it. It just brings that connection back, rather than it become this big sort of churning out machine of material. So I've really taken. Is that where you and I first our paths crossed on a live session? Is that how it
one
worked?
of the lives? It's usually, which is good. It's 5 p.m. Sydney time, so I came across it, and I think you were teaching a basic Buddhist meditation by the sounds of it.
Yeah. So my no hard sell here, but I'm an author. My book, Your Simple Path, is based around simplicity, around and no real sort of new ideas here. Thousands of years old. Just you and I in this moment now is all that exists, you know. And if that's your starter for 10 in life, that the more I can just be with you on this call now, that the more my life will flow. Then that's really what I teach. It all defaults back to, what about just having a go at this moment? We've all got stuff. We've all got a story before this moment. We've all got uncertainty after this moment. But why wouldn't we just give ourselves this moment, just a few minutes? And I'd started a small live stream called Find Calm in a Crazy World. 15 minutes every morning. And it's just taken off. It just seems to have found an audience, and receiving some lovely personal messages and emails via the website. So it's all good. But yeah, about this moment would be the summary.
Have you been a full-time meditation teacher your whole life, Ian, or have you had different careers?
No, so for 25 years, I was in lighting design. I was sales and marketing director of the UK's largest lighting company, and had a bit of an epiphany. We just closed down our about 10 years ago. We just closed down the financial year. It was Christmas Eve. Had a great result. European president called to say, well done on delivering that. And within an hour, I knew I was going to walk away from it. It came in a flash. It just it went from being quite terrifying to quite exciting, and just a knowing that it was all going to be okay. I was on a 6-month contract, so I literally gave them my notice in the January, and then worked the 6 months, and then looked at what life was about, really, Stephen. You know, if it wasn't about the career, and it wasn't about that journey towards all of that, it leaves a bit of a void. And what did I fill that with? And that's where the book came from. I started to look at Buddhist principles. I started to look at meditation. I had a look at religion. I had a look at philosophy, and all of it really started to bubble to the surface in the book and subsequent teachings. I'd always taught, I'd lectured in lighting and in the corporate world, so teaching was quite natural to me. And I think if I've got one string to my bow, it's been able to take quite a complex sort of thing and simplify it for a larger audience who might only want to dip in for an hour or a week or a month of their life. And that's really where the meditation come from. So I looked at meditation, and there was just something there. It creeps up on you, this meditation stuff. You sit, and it's difficult at first. Let's not try and cut it any other way. Your mind says, we don't want this. I'll take it from here. No more silence. But then after a few weeks, I realized actually I'd started to round the edges of things that bothered me. Things seemed to pass me by a little bit more and didn't stick. And that was where it all started, really. So I've looked at meditation, well-being. I've taught a holistic therapy called Reiki. I'm a teacher with the UK Reiki Federation for 10 years, over 10 years. So yeah, it's all in one, really.
Yeah, look, what an amazing way to earn a living, being a meditation teacher and teaching meditation. Probably one of the best ways, best job you could ever have, you know.
Sorry, go on, Steve.
I always think of a life of a Buddhist in a temple, Ian, is, well, they got nothing to lose. No stress in life. I saw there was a Buddhist on YouTube, was real estate in Los Angeles, earning huge amount of money, but never enjoyed it. Something just didn't feel right and just left it, became a Buddhist full time.
Yeah. I think what you've got, the key, certainly in the Western world, and I think this is probably a global message, is we've still got a life to live. And there seems to be this connotation about meditation that you need to be on top of a mountain, or you need to be in a temple or in the middle of a forest, and you can't. But it's taking the essence of what that gives you and then using it in everyday life. I think that's the balance we have to find now in the modern world. So taking these age-old sort of teachings and just building them into our everyday lives, and that's a lot of what my teaching is, really. There's another wonderful app that I'm involved in called Circles Live. I don't know if you've come across Circles Live yet.
Is it on the App Store?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So have a look at Circles Live, a really interesting concept, just growing. I've been there for about 3 months now. And the emphasis is, the clue's in the title. It's all about live meditation with a small select number of teachers. Free to use. You can subscribe should you wish, just like Insight Timer and the others. But there are free weekly classes. Circleslive.com. I think that's worth a look as well for yourself or any of your listeners, Steve.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I'm always open to having a look. The founder of Headspace, Andy Purikombi, was a Buddhist, full trained monk, but he then decided, okay, how am I going to use my training? So I think he's worked in some mental health institutions, but created the Headspace app. That was my first meditation app I came across. I was in university at the time, struggling with concentration and focus. So it's really helped me a long way. So that's how I built the foundation. To it.
And is it now a daily practice for you? Something that you dip in and out of? How does it work for you?
Yeah, daily, definitely daily.
Excellent, fantastic. Yeah.
Even before bed, Ian, I do it definitely.
Yeah.
I've looked at some of Dr. Joe Dispenza's stuff too, as well, and that's helped a lot. Yeah,
that's really interesting about I mean, Joe's work is a lot of it now is about the scientific aspect of manifesting and creating things in your life rather than leaving it to chance or the universe. There's some really interesting work going on there, isn't there?
Yeah.
I wonder where we'll be in 10 years' time with all of this stuff unfolding about, it's gone from can we manifest to we can, and the story of The Secret was about if you believe, if you see it, you can have it. And Joe's now sort of bolting on the scientific proof that actually there's parts of the brain that really do light up when you connect with something that you haven't got and bring it towards you. And so that's really interesting work. Yeah.
Have you practiced the law of attraction meditation in your journey?
Yeah, no, I have. It's, I mean, I like a lot of people, it sort of exploded onto the scene, and I thought, right, I'll live my life by it, and I'll just sit and wait. And I think anytime I look at anything in life, Stephen, balance seems to be the answer. So I think even with the law of attraction, there was an emphasis in the early days of that principle about think it, feel it, and then just wait. And of course, if it didn't appear on the timeline that you wanted, you got frustrated, you got, you know, so, and then it, by the very principle of it, it moves away from you if you become frustrated and disconnect with the emotional aspect. So what I've found now, a good mix really is I set an intent on something, an absolute intent. I develop a belief I can have it, but then I move towards it. I think that's the final third step of 3. You must build something into your life that moves you towards what it is you want to bring into your life. And I think quite a bit of the law of attraction work stops at step 2 and says, okay, now sit and wait. Now it may come along, but if we get frustrated and disconnect from the feeling of it, then it tends to drift. So, but yeah, no, I've had some amazing, in fact, my book, just very quick story on that, Stephen. I had a couple of offers in the early days for publishing, and I said no, thank you. They were good, but I just had a fee. So I self-published, and it really took off on Amazon. A few thousand copies sold in the first few months. So I was sitting in meditation one day, and I just had this overwhelming feeling to email one of the publishers who had offered me a contract 12 months previous. And so I lifted the lid on my laptop and sent a quick email to O Books, as it was, who publishes the book now, to the publicist there, and said, would you like to revisit this? And as I pressed send, I got an email coming in from the publicist saying, we'd like to revisit your book. So I think there's certain, I mean, the mathematical chances of 2 emails on the same subject a year later crossing like that are pretty remote. So for whatever reason, we both had the same idea at the same time. And so I think if there are certain things that you can use to your advantage, and remaining open, setting an intent and being positive, I think will certainly open doors.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's happened, Ian. I was talking to Jason Stevenson on the podcast about law of attraction and having patience as well. I've noticed it started working for me in smaller things as well. My podcast, talking to my teachers from Insight Timer, 5-6 years ago, if you said to me, Stephen, you're going to do a podcast and you're going to do that, I would have thought you're crazy, but it's just happened,
Yeah,
it's been an interesting journey too.
I think there's a term, it may be Buddhism, but certainly Eastern philosophy, that 10 small steps equal 1 giant leap. And everybody tries the giant leap and can't quite get there, so they stop. So it sounds to me what you've done is just broken it down into bite-sized chunks and made it practical. And just what I've talked about, you've moved towards your intent and moved towards your dream in a very common sense way. So good for you.
Back, because I studied classical music, Ian, I was a clarinetist. I wanted to play in the symphony orchestra. And the chances to be a even second clarinet, first clarinet in any symphony is very difficult for anyone. So I wanted to go there. I had high expectations, but doing the undergraduate degree, I was getting mild depression. Really caught to me in 2018. I finished what I did, and maybe the universe didn't want me to go down that path.
Yeah. I think intuition and gut instinct is so important. The old adage about don't push water uphill. And we have this sort of closed nature about how it should be, and this is what I really want. And ultimately letting go and see, is the best. And anything now that doesn't feel right to me, I simply don't pursue. That might sound quite elitist or clinical, but you were very, very kind to offer me a chance for us to talk. I had a good feeling, but I did look at the podcasts. It aligned with my message and the work I like. So I've moved in the direction of you and this podcast. And I think that's what I mean by steps towards what you want to create. If something doesn't feel right, or it certainly starts to affect your well-being, there's a really strong message there. And so maybe you haven't got a clarinet in your hand, but look at the change you're making in the world now. Look at the people you're touching with your work, and this will grow and maybe it will change. But it sounds to me like you followed your heart and your intuition.
I could tell you another story. I was a casual employee. I was doing doing a sales job, getting $26 an hour. And sometimes I'd get 30 on a weekend, but the commuting an hour and a half to the city, something deep down there, and I just didn't feel right. Yet I was earning good money. It was weird.
Yeah.
Coming home, not sleeping properly, blood pressure going up because I thought stuff something up at work and I'm getting in trouble.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I've come to know, I think it's a universal truth, which means it always has been, it is now, and it always will be the truth. And I think a true measure of success is how peaceful you feel. So a true measure of success is how calm your mind is, how open your heart is. And the world is full of messages day and night that tell us we need more, that tell us we have to achieve, that tell us we need the promotion. And with that comes struggling. With that comes suffering. In Buddhist terms, suffering is the inability to simply live with an open heart and a calm mind. And so when we look back towards the end of our lives, and we all will, let's face it, I'm pretty certain it won't be about what we've got. It will be about how we've been. And sometimes it's too late to realize that. So again, good for you. My commute now, you probably see behind me, is my insight time, a Circles Live and interview space is 5 paces from my bed. I make no apologies about that. That's the sort of commute I'd like. Maybe not forever, but for now it really works. And so let's don't create stress that doesn't need to be there. And quite often you've talked about the hourly rate there. Yeah, we tend, most of the time, our stress is associated with earning because other people are earning it because we think we need it. But if you've been on one of my morning sessions, every day I deliver a message. The simplest things deliver our deepest needs. The simplest things deliver our deepest needs. So in my workshops, I do a very simple but profound exercise where I ask people just to take a piece of paper, draw a heart in the middle of it, and write down something that they're truly grateful for, to remind them of what they have right now rather than what they need to go and chase. Because we forget, we're chasing the dream, we're off after the next big hit. And our life and our world is full of things right now to be grateful for. And I would say in 10 years and thousands of people doing the workshop, whatever people have placed in that heart on that piece of paper has never had a monetary value. So when we strip it away, the simplest things are what really serve us. And
this is what's weird, Ian. You get high sportsmen earning these $2 million a year contracts. And I know this is going on in the NFL. 2 years, they're filing bankruptcy.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Mental health issues. I mean, before we even start on the financial aspect, let's talk about the cost to their health. They're driven athletes. They're worked hard physically. There's a high dependency and expectancy on success. So we see the bit on social media where they have the millions of hits an hour and the earnings and all of that. But I think when they close the door on all of the noise, and I don't think the money means anything to them at all. In fact, I'm pretty certain it doesn't. In fact, I've known 1 or 2 athletes who I won't mention who have football or soccer players, as it's a global message. and they've earned fantastic money and just fell out of the game, fell out of love with the sport, fell out of love with themselves, didn't know who they were because they were in the public eye all the time. Now, I'm not saying it can't be an unbelievable existence, and I'm sure it is. People screaming your name, each week, but balance. We're back to balance again. That word, finding balance in life.
Exactly. And I mean, it's and when that contract runs out, that's it.
Yeah, people
Where
stop
do you
singing.
go?
People stop singing your name. You've had 15, 18, 20 years of people screaming and shouting and wanting autographs, and then suddenly somebody else's name is being sang. And who are you? The author Wayne Dyer used to say, "Don't become the name on your business card, the title on your business card. Don't become the title on your email signature, because if that title disappears and we can't control anything in life, who are you?" So work on you, not on the title. The titles can follow, but build a foundation and around you as a person. Really know yourself.
Yeah, Wayne. Is it Wayne Dwyer or Wayne Dyer? Is it?
Wayne Dyer. Yeah, he's unfortunately no longer with us. He's been a massive influence on my life and career.
Oh yeah, he's a very interesting man. I've got some of his stuff on Audible as well. I've got to re-listen to it.
Yeah,
it's just interesting how he explains spirituality as well.
Yes. Yeah. So he takes the religious stigma out of it, really, and he said, "There's just something bigger than us. Think of it that way." Spirituality. The word spiritual literally means contemplating something bigger than you. So over the years, somebody's put the word God to it, and depending on where you are in the world, a man with a long grey beard, or 10 Commandments, or a turban, or whatever. But spirituality is simply the contemplation of something bigger than you, and that can be nature, it can be the sky, it can be universe. In Japan, I think it's called Shinzu. They have a religion, the main religion in Japan, where they recognize spirituality as everything, an insect, a leaf. And I really like that concept. So, and Wayne Dyer, one of my default lines from him is, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So quite often, just because of where we are in life, the journey we're on, the point we are in our life, we tend to look through certain glasses at certain things, and we project how we are onto that thing. But when we work on ourselves and we change ourselves, the things we look at seem to change as well, and always for the better.
Yeah, it's not an overnight thing. Change happens. It takes time and practice as well. It's been a journey for me. Law of attraction. I wanted to mention that there are some teachers like Bob Proctor, Tony Robbins, who I think, in my opinion, have bastardized it and charging ridiculous amount of money to study from them. Yet my teachers on Insight Timer can explain it much better.
I think you're absolutely right. I think right moment, right time, 20 years ago, when the world was becoming open to personal development, about the fact that you could change yourself in some way. There wouldn't have been 10,500 teachers on Insight Timer then, maybe 10 who embraced it and started to teach it. And I think the two gentlemen that you've mentioned have certainly made a career out of it. I don't connect with their style or their message, each to their own, and I'm sure they have helped thousands, if not millions, of people over the years. But I think that the genre of personal development and personal growth has changed now. And if you look at Tony Robbins over the years, Stephen, he's developed more of a spiritual aspect to his work as well. In the early days, if you look at his recordings on pre-Oprah or, some info commercials, it was all about chasing the dollar, becoming a millionaire. And there's an aspect of that now. But it seems to, even Tony Robbins has softened his message to one of being in service, to recognizing something that's bigger than him. And he's quite big, so it must be quite big. but you're right. Yeah, I think they have an audience, but certainly different to the style that me and many teachers who have come after have.
Like he ended up making $1 million on the stock market and was still depressed, going through a divorce with his wife as well.
Yeah, well, back to the sports stars. You know, it means nothing. Just keep adding zeros on that on the balance of that bank account. If you can't look at yourself and be comfortable in the mirror, they actually add to the pressure, not take it away.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it, Ian?
It is. It's all
Very
about balance.
weird,
all about balance.
And education too. Have you gone to university, or what have you done?
No, I'm of a generation, certainly in the UK. I mean, I'm 55 now, where it was probably when I left school in the mid 80s, it was less than 3-4% that went on to university. So I have a high school education. I started work quite quickly, built my way up to what was that sales and marketing role for the last few years of my life. So yeah, come up through the on the tools, as they say in the UK, as opposed to a formal sort of education system. So, which was quite a surprise when I wrote the book. If somebody had told me 25 years ago that I'd be a published author, I'd have probably told them they'd got the wrong Ian Tucker. So it's amazing how life can change.
Because we're all taught in school that we got to get a 9-to-5 job. My careers advisor taught that, and they always glamorized military life, always put a glamorous photo of a soldier, but never talk about, never really taught me the real world and what's going on until you step out there, Ian.
Yeah, and I think the world has changed, hasn't it? Even before COVID and the last 18, 20 months, which has moved us all to think differently. I do think that the electronic age, and by that I mean the internet, the World Wide Web, has just enabled people to work, to deliver, to earn in a completely different way. We don't need to get in that car or do that commute that you talked about earlier, or clock in at 9 and clock out at 5:30 anymore. It can still be a viable means of earning. But this thing that you and I are using now, we're on opposite sides of the world, looking at each other, chatting and creating. So I think the world has changed forever, actually.
Yeah, it's technology now with Zoom, Skype, Google Hangouts as well is become very popular too.
Yeah. Have you missed interaction with people in a room?
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
I don't like online learning. I like to be in a room or a seminar. I want to be in a room because on a screen I get just disengaged.
Yeah, I agree.
I
think it's certainly served the purpose, and it's probably been a lifeline, Stephen, for millions of people. My father's 87. And we've set him up online for the first time in his life in the last 2 years. Thank God we did, because he lives alone. I'm 3 hours away. So it has a purpose. But I think that when it comes to learning, I think human interaction in a space, the energy of other people, learning together, and just the enjoyment of going somewhere on a day with an intent, with a new group of people. I think that's something we need to get back to, definitely.
Yeah, because last year everything. Are you still in a lockdown? Where you in the UK? What's going on?
No, we're. If you listen to our Prime Minister Boris Johnson, we're leading the world in vaccines. So we have a population in the UK of I think about 70 million, and 40 million people have been vaccinated now. So it's moving at quite a pace. So it's interesting you asked that question. If you'd have asked me last week, we'd have still had restrictions. But from Monday this week, the 17th of May, things have basically opened back up. You can now go back into bars, into restaurants, concerts. I went to a music concert last night, albeit quite informal and small. But so we've sort of turned a corner. The only problem is we've been here before, so we'll see. All the more reason to be in this moment with you now and not worry about what's what might or might not happen. So what about there? How is it in Australia?
Slowly getting back to normal, but when you go to a restaurant, you got to use a QR code.
Okay, yeah.
Put your name and email, but that's a bit creepy because the government know where I am. But slowly, our vaccine rollout's been very slow, I'd say.
Yeah.
We've been
I think
lucky in Australia.
Go on, sorry, Stephen.
Yeah, we've been very lucky in Australia, Ian.
In what way? Just with the numbers, or?
Yeah, the numbers.
Yeah. And New Zealand even better, I think. New Zealand really nailed it, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah, it's got really. Are you, as an Australian, are you allowed to give New Zealand credit? There's a bit of rivalry, isn't there? It's okay, is it? Okay.
It is. They did well, except for Melbourne. They went into a second lockdown last year, but our numbers are quite low compared to Europe and all that.
Yeah. A bit more, maybe a bit more remote geographically, an island. I know that sounds very basic, but as a continent, Europe, there's just boundaries, lines on a map that you can cross over. So there's a lot more interaction between different nationalities, between different cultures. So I think that's all probably had an effect, hasn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. But just get fed up of hearing about it on TV.
Yeah. I'm all for, and look, we're doing it now. We could be talking about anything. I think it's my fault. I think I asked you about it. So, but we've gone back to the C word. Yeah. No, we talked about being in a room with people again. So my Reiki training has stopped for 18 months. I've just put 2 classes in for June and July that have sold out immediately. So that there's messages there. People are ready now. They want to step back out and be around people again.
Yeah, I don't blame them.
No, it's very good.
But Reiki's interesting. I've done some Reiki teaching on Insight Timer as well with some teachers. It's an interesting technique.
Yeah, it's it's profound. It's simple but profound. So I do it every Sunday night at 8 p.m. I do Reiki Sunday, where it's a Reiki self-healing session. If you want to jump in this Sunday, I'll be there 8 p.m. Mind you, God knows what time that is where you are, but it's 8 o'clock UK time. So 11 hours after this. So it's, but Reiki is amazing. I mean, it just calls on us accepting on some level that there's something bigger than us, an energy. Nature gets it. If you look at trees, if you look at water, energy flows through everything that works in nature. If you stop water flowing, it becomes stagnant. If the energy in water flows, it's healthy. And we're exactly the same, at energetic base. We're the same as a leaf. We're the same as a molecule of water, as an insect. So nature understands it has to keep moving. We tend to think we can do it all on our own and we don't need help from outside. And so Reiki simply taps into a universal energy. And we then work on 7 energy centers called chakras on the body that is real to you and I as our physical form. Each one has a very specific job to do: heart chakra, sacral chakra. And we just ask that Reiki flows to that energy center to re-energize, to unblock. So just like that flowing stream, Stephen, energy can flow through us as well. And it's just had an unbelievable effect on my life, and the change I've seen it make to, I don't call it teaching Reiki because it's universal energy, it's yours anyway. But I've probably passed Reiki on to 2,000 people in 12, 13 years. And it's been life-changing, a real game changer for a lot of them. So whether it's yourself or anybody else listening, I would really encourage them to perhaps have a look at Reiki. Very simple, very inclusive, but profound and powerful.
Interesting. And what other hobbies are you doing yourself, Ian? What do you do to keep busy?
Yeah, I'm poor at it, but I love yoga. So I'm the most inflexible yogi you're going to meet. I've started it at the wrong age, or maybe the right age, So I get down on the mat whenever I can. It's a bit like we've just been talking about. I love the idea of being in a studio doing yoga with others. being in a room on my own or with my partner is, on a mat doesn't quite carry the same enthusiasm. I've got a passion for football, soccer. My team is West Bromwich Albion. Have you ever heard of them?
Ever heard of familiar?
Good.
I've heard of Manchester United. Were the ones I was following for years.
We're in the same league as them, but not quite in the same league, if that makes sense. So we play Manchester United, so I love soccer and nature, really. I know that seems to be a pretty standard response from people who do what I do, but over the last 4 or 5 years, I've developed a real love of nature and just being outdoors. And I live in talking to somebody in Australia, I can't brag about being on the coast, but I live in the southwest of England, in Devon, which is the surf scene for the UK. The only Devon and Cornwall is a small surf scene, and I'm blessed with lots of woods and forests around. So, yeah, just getting out and walking has been fantastic in the last 18 months for me. Getting out each day and just walking and being in nature. Reminding myself that nature gets it. A tree doesn't go chasing for stuff. It knows it has everything it needs right there. So it's a good source of inspiration for my work as well.
Yeah, you got to get vitamin D, definitely.
Yeah. Which living in England isn't always easy, Stephen. We don't have a lot of sun.
Even in Australia too, when you get those overcast days and it's cold, it's sort of miserable. So do you guys get a lot of sun in the winter time, or what's it like where you are?
No, it's definitely 4 seasons here. So we sometimes don't get a lot of sun in the summertime, never mind the winter time. So, I mean, it looks like today, this is towards the end of spring, early summer for us. And this is probably the 9th straight day of rain that we've had in the southwest of England. When I say rain, it's been relentless all day. So for this time of year, that's quite rare, but we count our blessings when the sun comes out. There's no guarantees in the UK. My partner, she's from Barcelona, and she needs the sunshine. She had a couple of days without sun because obviously in Barcelona and Spain, it's very warm. A couple of days without sun, and she goes looking for light. So, yeah.
Does it ever get hot in summertime, like 40 degrees?
No. We start shouting about it if we get to 22, 23.
That's like a winter's day. That's pretty much a typical winter's. That's a beautiful day in Sydney. That's like beautiful weather. And you guys are lucky you don't get a heat wave.
No. We get 25, 26 degrees and nobody goes to work. I'm joking there, but we literally think, okay, it's too hot. This is crazy. The Earth's going to melt, and it's probably a mild autumn day for you there. So it's definitely 4 seasons, which is beautiful. I did some work in the Middle East a few years ago, and every meeting I walked into, I was still in the lighting game then, and every meeting I walked into, I'd start to talk about how hot it was. How hot, isn't it hot? This was in Dubai and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. It's warm, the heat. And after about the 3rd day, that my chaperone who was taking me around said, can you stop talking about the weather? We don't talk about, you're in the desert in the Middle East, it's hot, we know. So, but in Britain, we always talk about the weather because it's so changeable. So he tipped me the wink that they don't do that there. They don't need to because it's just always hot. So, yeah.
Yeah, also too, your body must acclimatize to the heat because you go to the Northern Territory all year round, it's summer. 30 degrees in the middle of winter, then you get the wet, so muggy, it's like, feels like it's 50.
Yeah. I spent some time in Japan in 2017. I spent a month there, and that was the first time I'd ever experienced real humidity. And it can be difficult. But you look at Scandinavia. I was watching a documentary a couple of weeks ago around Iceland, and they were getting 3 or 4 hours natural daylight in 24 for a few months, and that must be, never mind the cold weather, just the dark must be a bit of a slog. So
do you guys get very thick snow in England, or
It's I mean, we're not a big country, but it's more northern than southern, really. So you can drive from the south to the north in about 6-7 hours. But north tends to be more central and north. Snow, sorry, it tends to be more central and north. But we'll have snowfall, every year, winter. But nothing like we used to. Whether I'm just harping back, but in the 60s and 70s, I remember it being, you couldn't open your front door for it. We don't get that now. I think there's a definite something's around climate change and affecting even the day-to-day sort of weather.
In Australia, you got to go up to like the Blue Mountains, even up to Orange, for it to snow.
Okay, yeah.
But it's not. It does snow, but it doesn't get ice. The ponds don't freeze up.
So what's the coldest that you experience where you are?
Probably about 6 degrees.
Oh, okay.
In Canberra, if you go to Canberra, it can get about -1, sometimes -3.
Okay, yeah.
See, I like the winter better than the summer.
Yeah, I'm an autumn man. I've always liked it. Certainly, but there's an interesting. I got involved with a healing modality. It's a science and a type of food called macrobiotics. I don't know if you've ever heard of macrobiotics.
Not yet.
And it originated from Japan, and in essence, it's about aligning your body and your personality to certain types of food. And I mean, they have some amazingly positive effects on well-being. People go to the macrobiotic school in the south of England with skin conditions they've had all their lives, and almost in real time, because they simply change the diet, it moves. And they said that in macrobiotics, they think that we're all born pre-programmed with a favorite season that we're more aligned to. So if I'm autumn, I'm more about the gentle nature of autumn and letting go. If you're winter, it would be probably the slower pace of winter and everything that goes with winter, maybe just taking it easy and not being too. And then you get these fiery characters, and guess what? They align to summer. You can just tell as soon as you meet them that they're not going to be great through a dark winter. So, yeah, in macrobiotics, they think we're all aligned before we've even been born to a certain, and we come into our own. They say, if you're going to do any creative work, do it in your season. That's when the juices flow. That's when you're at your best. So it's good to highlight and acknowledge a time of year when you're feeling a bit better about yourself. So what is it for you? Winter for you?
Yeah, winter for me. I find I can sleep better. I don't really don't hate the heat.
Yeah.
Just get tired and fatigued. Everyone's different, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The weather, say if you were to go down south, Tasmania, it seems to be more cooler down there. But if you go in the Northern Territory, summer all year, always hot.
Yeah. All about balance. I keep coming back to that, even the weather. Although Billy Connolly, you probably know him because he's big in Australia, the Scottish comedian Billy Connolly, he said there's no such thing as bad weather, just the wrong coat. So in other words, the weather is just the weather. We've just got to dress right for it. There we are.
No, it's interesting. Yes. Have you got any? You gonna publish any meditations on Insight Timer in the future?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So one went live last week, which is Wipe Your Slate Clean, which has had a really good take up, and that's a 20-minute meditation around just resetting, taking just a few minutes. It basically uses the principle of light to come through your body, and on an energetic level, just I encourage the listener to think that maybe you and I are just 100 units of energy. And in that mix, there's happiness and sadness and hope and grief. And we can change that mix at any time. And allowing this light, just set an intent to be well in that moment and let the light reset those 100 units of energy so you can start again. And that's had some lovely feedback if you look. So, and I've got a couple of Reiki self-healing and meditation recordings coming out in the next few weeks. So I like to put out maybe one or two a month, just to keep the momentum. And I can wake up. I mean, I was on a walk about a month ago, and there was it was a very windy day, and there was wind moving through trees, and I just got this overwhelming feeling to walk straight back here to the studio and record a session around wind and trees and nature. And so I never quite know where the next one's coming from, Stephen, if I'm honest. But yep, there's a couple going live soon.
Do you find to be a teacher on Insight Timer that you have to upload in a certain way, or they check your work out, or
yeah, it's quite stringent behind the scenes, and quite right. You know, if you're growing to 10, 11,000 teachers, you can imagine the body of work they receive every day for people wanting to put it out there. So there's certain audio levels that you have to achieve with regards to quality. If you're going to go live, then you have to have a certain specification with regards to your video and audio and visual equipment. And I think as well, you have to sort of just satisfy them in the early days. Now, I don't know if this is the case now, but certainly 3-4 years ago when I was first there, you had to satisfy them that you were around this genre, you were teaching, you had a degree of knowledge around the subject. So that's how they used to raise the bar. So I mean, I don't think you get too many recordings that you might not agree or like the content, but the quality seems quite good on Insight Timer to me. I've never had anything sent back, so whatever I'm doing seems to tick the boxes for them.
Yeah, the only issue you get sometimes is with some other teachers doing the live stream, the audio can be a bit soft as well.
Yeah.
Maybe
but again, just before you go live, you can check the audio. So they have sort of a bandwidth of, so a very simple bar, sort of green through to red. You do a quick audio check. It shows you where you are. If you're too low, you have to make adjustments. So they've thought of that. It might just be down to the teacher not checking before they go live, or something happens with the connection. But yeah, no, I mean, if you look, well, you can see behind me, your listeners won't, but you can see that's how simple life can change. I've got a tripod with a light and an iPhone carrier. I've got the iPhone 12 with a great spec camera and audio, and you're good to go. I mean, even 5 years ago, that would have been a recording studio and booking sessions. It's quite unbelievable, really, how technology has enabled this to happen.
Yeah, Insight Timer does spread a positive message. I've kept the app since 2018, Ian.
Yeah. How many teachers would you say you follow on there? Do you keep it tight, or do you sort of throw the net out and see who's there?
Throw the net out. If someone's got a good recording, I'll click follow as well.
Yeah, good.
I like the course.
Yeah.
I've got a law of attraction circle, so I recommend it for people as well.
Great.
You know,
excellent. And do you so it was it one of my mornings? So it was evening there with the Find Calm in a Crazy World. That's when
5 p.m.
came across me. Okay, yeah. And on Circles Live, the Australian audience on Circles Live, about 70% of my subscribers are Australian. So I don't know whether it's something in my this is a Birmingham accent, middle of the UK. I don't know whether that resonates with the Aussie accent in some way, but no, there seems to be, and quite often on Insight Timer as well, there's quite a lot of people on the live from Australia. So whether it's just the time I do it and it fits and works, it's yeah.
So with donations on Insight Timer, when people could donate for the lives, is that people giving like a gratitude for the teachers, or how does that work on Insight Timer?
I think it's this. I always say I don't expect any donations, but they're gratefully received. You know, that's the energy and the intent I set around that session. But the model around Insight Timer is that they have a big, move donations to one side for a moment. They have a big pot of money coming in from subscribers and other revenue streams. And then the more successful, and by that I mean the more popular you are as a teacher, the more you take of that pot.
Gotcha.
So the more views I get, or the more listens I get on recordings, the more I reply to people who have donated or have commented or reviewed, the more interactive I am, then I take a percentage of that pot. And then the donations sit aside, and they take a bit of the donations, but they recognise that the people want the money to come to you for the work that you're doing. So there's two ways to earn money there. There's the pot of money that you take a percentage of, depending on how busy, how successful, how many listens you have. And that, I think that's only right. If you've got a teacher getting 10 listens a month and you've got another one getting 20,000, then, you know, that second teacher should probably get more revenue whilst the other one builds their interest up. So that's how it works on Insight Time. A very, very good company to deal with behind the scenes. Very authentic, honest, open, professional. So what you see at the front end is what I've experienced at the back end.
No, as long as you're happy. I mean, if they got like, oh God, how many teachers on it? It must be a very successful app, you know?
Yeah. I just think the only thing I would say, and they're probably looking at it themselves, is I think there's a saturation point with anything. And when you start to get to 11,000 teachers, maybe you ask a question about, you know, where do we take this? What's the next step? Does 11,000 become 20,000? Because, okay, there's 14 million listeners, but if you're growing teachers twice as much as you are listeners, then it starts to get a little bit noisy, I think, for the people who are using the app, would be my view. And I don't quite know what the answer is on that, whether they drag it back, whether they only keep teachers who have a certain sort of hit rate, but I think we'll probably see some changes with it in the next 6 to 12 months, where they might just try and tidy it all up a bit, because it's growing at an amazing rate. But great platform.
Yeah, they've hit 18 million users.
Have they really? Wow,
that's a lot.
So that's grown by 4 million in less than 1 year. So yeah, it might be a message for you, Stephen. There might be another opportunity for a second platform. Shields Productions. There we go. Hold that thought.
Never know. I might do some music in the future.
I have a friend of mine called Ajna, who I use a lot of his music and tracks on my meditations. And Ajna had a library of music he'd completely forgot about. You know, loved it, created it, was very proud of it, but it was gathering dust, if he was honest. And I introduced him to Insight Timer, and 6-8 months later, it's getting thousands. It's suddenly shone a light on it again for him. He was absolutely amazed. So hold that thought as well. Who knows? Good for you.
Never know. You know, I'm very happy with the app. I'll keep it. That's what I like. I've noticed they've got live yoga as well. Kino McGregor, she's like a big Ashtanga yoga teacher on YouTube.
Yeah,
was featured on it as well.
Yoga's proving very, even in the general live sessions, it's proving really popular, isn't it? People seem to. There's a lovely yoga app, very low priced, very high quality, called Down Dog. I don't know if you've ever heard of Down Dog.
Got that.
Yeah, I really enjoy Down Dog. I think it's it's about $6 a month, I think, maybe $7, and you get total access. I think the way it flows, how interactive it is, how inclusive with different levels, how flexible, if you excuse the pun. I'm in the app rather than me when I'm doing yoga. So I enjoy Down Dog, but I think maybe that's where Insight Timer will go. It will start to break out into different genres and different things, as opposed to have it all in one place. I'm sure we're not saying anything they're not already looking at head office.
You know, Sonic Yogi, I've had him on the podcast a few times, does some good, Tibetan sound bowls, meditation. I came across him back in 2018.
Okay, I'll check him out. I don't know him. So Sonic Yogi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take a look. Thank you.
You know, and I like Tibetan bowls.
Yeah.
They're good for the
Yeah.
brain.
Have you been to a sound bath in real life?
Not real live. I've done it live on the app.
Yeah. I mean,
Something
if
I'd
you can
look at.
experience one live, it's quite amazing. I went in not skeptical, but okay, the lady at the top end of the room has a collection of weird looking things, and the sound and the frequency and the energy and the ambience she created was quite unbelievable. So I think I was the only one not snoring. And even I have to admit I dozed off at one point. And so it was yeah. I think it's very popular. I'm sure you'd find one quite close to where you live. I would if you really enjoy that sound, I would give that a go. But go and lie on a mat somewhere with a blanket over you in a room. You'll really enjoy it.
David G is a well-known teacher on the app. You know, Kenneth Sorrellis too. He's been on YouTube for years.
Yes.
He's on Insight Timer, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, listen, any platform or opportunity that brings you, how many million did you say it is now?
18 they've hit.
You know, that's a big audience. It doesn't matter whether you're starting out as a teacher or whether you already have a following. To have 18 million people who could access your work is quite unbelievable. So it doesn't. I know that I'm not sure if you're familiar with Russell Brand.
Yes, he's
Russell
on
Brand.
there.
Yeah, and I mean Russell Brand has seen the opportunity, and there was an American singer-songwriter. I can't think what sold millions of records, and she popped up recently as doing a meditation course on there. So yeah, I think it's big news. Yeah.
It'll go a long way. Yeah, look, Ian, thanks for coming on the podcast today. Where can people find you on Insight Timer and your social media?
Yeah, so the best thing to do would be to visit www.iantucker, IANTUCKER, iantucker.co.uk. That's a great starting point, and links to all of my work can be found there.